Namaste, welcome back. So, as promised, I'm back this week with a little more hair on my head. Hope you noticed that. And let's start crushing this video. So, the topic of today's video is, are you a supplier damager? Now, let's start with supplier segmentation. The first point that I have under supplier segmentation is over-indexing your spend and ignoring the other criteria. So this spells for a disaster. So try not to do that. It's not just spend, there are many other criteria that you could include. Now, the second one that I have is quite the opposite of the first one. Having an analysis paralysis by including too many criteria for segmentation. So that's another thing not to do. And the third one that I have is a fatal error is not having a stakeholder consensus on the segmentation criteria. So this would, if you had this thought of not involving the stakeholder, rather don't do the segmentation. That's my personal recommendation. Okay, now we're done with the supplier segmentation. Let's jump to supplier governance. On the supplier governance, the first point that I have is waste of time. If your senior management comes back to you saying, Karthik, why are you wasting my time on these tier 1 supplier review meetings? Like CPO or somebody at the senior level is involved in such meetings, it's a waste of time. Okay, that's point 1. Point 2 is bad timing. If you don't have the right frequency set, then it is not a good supplier management program. Okay, the frequency should be set as per the supplier tier, and that's key. Now, the third one that I have is a fatal error, which is not having a supplier governance strategy. So you take them as they come. If it's an ad hoc thing where you have an issue with the supplier and then you are governing that particular issue, that's not the ideal way to be. Procurement needs to be more focused on the key critical suppliers. Now that brings us to the end of supplier governance. Let's get to supplier scorecard. Now this is a very interesting topic. A lot of people are very close to this topic. So the first piece that I have is having a data disaster. What do you mean by a data disaster? You spend tons and tons of time collecting the data and allocate very less time to analyzing it because you're spending so much time in collecting the data. So that qualifies you for a supplier damager. Now the second key piece I have is having scorecards built for all your suppliers, regardless of the tier. It doesn't make sense. Procurement needs to focus on the key suppliers. So only tier 1 and tier 2. That's what you need to focus on. If you're doing it for all your suppliers, you're wasting your time. Okay. The third one I have is you thinking that does the supplier's opinion even matters? Now, if you think in this manner, then that qualifies you to be a supplier damager. Job well done. It is key that the suppliers do a self-assessment of their performance, and you need to check how do they think about themselves and what do you think about them to understand the gap, or whether maybe the supplier is terribly wrong or maybe you're terribly wrong, but you need to understand what the performance looks like from the supplier side and your side. Now, with that, we're done with supplier scorecard. We're jumping on to the last piece, which is continuous improvement. Now, the first piece on the continuous improvement side is there anything to improve? I think the suppliers perform very good. He's met all the KPIs. Well, that's the wrong mindset. You need to have stretching KPIs, stretching goals for the supplier. You should also scan for innovators and look at innovation, because innovation is what improves you as a procurement organization as well as the supplier, because he might use the same innovation and other customers of his. So it's a win-win situation. Now, the second piece that I have under supplier innovation is not validating the supplier scorecard with your stakeholder. So you got the results and you're very excited to go into the meeting. That's a ticking time bomb, because your stakeholder could be the one who's the closest to the supplier. He understands the supplier more. He knows how the supplier did perform in reality. Maybe the numbers are wrong. So you might need to go revalidate the numbers and check why is the business saying different than what the scorecard shows. So that could be a reason. The last one is you getting into the discussion, the meeting, making the supplier meeting into a sob story. The supplier didn't perform. You just emphasizing on them doing the mistakes and deviating the focus from understanding what could be an improvement plan, what the reason was for the supplier's non-performance. That is a big no-no. So it's rather stay focused, try to get into the discussion to understand how we could improve, rather pinning down the supplier and making it into a sob story as to how he did not perform. Okay, that brings us to the end of all the topics under supplier damager. One key fact that I've read in one of the Gartner reports is only 35% of CPOs have confirmed that they have a supplier management program as such. So if you are a part of the rest of the 65% bracket, you are a supplier damager. And don't be a supplier damager. It was wonderful making this video. Hope you enjoyed it as well. See you next week. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.